Hey everybody, welcome back to Kicking It with the KTrain, talking with people who help me keep an eye on my vision. And not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited to chat with this next guest because he is the guy that actually gave me the nickname KTrain, and it is my good buddy, the Reverend, the one and only, the Reverend Will Fisher. Will, welcome to Kicking It with the KTrain, man. How's it going?
It's going well. Well, no, let me rephrase that. In spite of everything else, it's going well.
Yes. So I one of the I knew you were available to do this podcast because you're unfortunately hobbled with a little ankle injury because you're just a badass,
And a broken leg. So
yeah, and a broken leg, so
yeah.
but I figured we could take your mind off the old injury and just do a little bit of reminiscing about some of the adventures that we've had, but really what I kind of want to start with is I want to really let our listeners kind of get to know you a little bit. And so like, why don't you kind of take us back, like, what is your background a little bit, back before you became a runner, a triathlete, even before you kind of became the Reverend. Take us back to what's your background a little bit.
Sure. So I'm an Episcopal priest. I've been ordained getting close to 20 years now. Yeah, actually, it'll be 19 years in a little bit. So,
Wow.
yeah, that's why. And I married a woman from Queens, so it seems like the moniker Reverend Run, which is I don't remember who gave it to me, but
Mhm.
I acquired that when I moved to the Roaring Fork Valley back in
Mhm.
2013. So, a little bit of background. I've been doing hardcore endurance sports since I was a freshman in high school. And the hardcore endurance sport that I started was rowing. And, I'd played, growing up in Buffalo, New York, played youth hockey, picked up football and lacrosse in eighth grade. I decided after uh, eighth grade that I wanted to try maybe a different spring sport because
Mhm.
I had to do a sport each term in high school. So I started rowing, and right away I fell in love with the sport. It was it was like the last day in March in 1987. It
Mhm.
was cold, gray. I think it even snowed. It shouldn't have been a fun day, but I don't know how to describe it. I just loved it right off the bat. Um, and so I pursued that all through the rest of high school,
Mhm.
uh, making the U.S. junior national team back in 1989.
Mhm.
Uh, got to compete against some countries that don't exist anymore. And then uh, I was recruited and then by a couple of colleges to go row for their heavyweight crew,
Mhm.
even though I was a little undersized as a heavyweight at 6'2". I ended up choosing Brown kind of for the same reason I chose the sport of rowing. I just fell in love with it right away. First moment setting foot on campus, and competed all 4 years there. My senior year, every boat in our program went undefeated,
Wow.
something that had only been done a couple times previous and once since. So um, I worked in banking for a little while and decided I wanted to try and make a senior national team. So I quit that. But I rode out of Riverside Boat Club for a couple of years, where I met a coach who you got to meet when we went out to Ironman, Arizona.
I
About
did.
uh, so Iskra Velanova, and she had been on 4 different Bulgarian Olympic teams in rowing, and quite a character too. But also, she was not my first experience with, with overseas athletes. I'd had a number of teammates from overseas in my college days. In fact, my senior year, we had 9 Olympians on that team.
Wow.
And so that'd be like playing on a college football team with 18 future draft picks.
Wow.
So it was a very stacked program, including guys that because they won the first world championship medal in any sport for an independent former Yugoslavia, they have their own postage stamps and stuff.
Wow.
So anyway, and I think one of the great lessons that, and I think one of the neat things about sport, especially in the context of high school or college, but I think it's also true, after your formal education is ended. Sport is very much education. You're in a collegiate context. It doesn't matter whether you're pulling on an oar on the Seekonk River or trying to figure out an acid base equation in a chemistry lab. You're making a mental effort under pressure. And with sport, of course, you've got there's the physical effort as well, but it really is about making a mental effort. And one of the great things that rowing at Brown, as an educational rather than an athletic endeavor, gave me was a laboratory for learning about focus, perseverance, mental toughness, overcoming adversity, giving, all of those things that are critical outside of sport, outside the workplace, outside the classroom, and so on. But anyway, so I rode for several years for Riverside Boat Club up in Boston. And then I got invited to train at the National Team Training Center in Augusta, Georgia. And senior, I call my senior year 2000, the 2000 season. I was injured for a lot of that, and I kind of knew I was not going to make the national team, especially in an Olympic year. And I kind of was gradually transitioning to, post-sport life after that anyway. So I ended up getting sponsored by the church that I attended down there for ordination. And I worked as a social worker as part of an internship program out of the Diocese of Los Angeles, the Episcopal Service Corps, it's now called.
Okay.
And I took up master's swimming there. And so I found out, I'm a decent swimmer. I also did my first road marathon, did the Los Angeles Marathon. I didn't really know how to train systematically for it. I would just go out and run. So sometimes my training week was a whole bunch of long runs. But it's still, I finished in 3 hours and 40 minutes. So it was not a bad maiden voyage.
Not a bad maiden marathon time at all.
So
considering my first one was like almost 6 hours. Yeah, I'd say 40 was pretty solid.
Yeah. And so when I went to seminary, in New York, at General Theological Seminary. And for any of your audience who are Law and Order fans,
Yep.
it's frequently General Theological Seminary is frequently where they film the fictitious Hudson University on Law and Order.
Oh, okay.
And so when I was in school, they were frequently filming episodes of SVU.
Oh, wow.
So I got to meet Ice-T and so anyway. So, during the summers, I wasn't in New York. And by the way, New York City is actually it's not a bad place to be an endurance athlete. It's not a bad place to be a triathlete because at least from Manhattan, you've got big chunks of time where the Central Park Loop is closed to car traffic.
Yep.
It's a great place to just go and ride. I mean, it's the same 6 miles over and over again, but there's also, you've got a bike path along the Hudson River Esplanade.
Yep.
So it's fairly easy to get up to the George Washington Bridge and go for long rides up Route 9W, through Alpine, New Jersey and Nyack, New York. And you can actually go pretty far up the Hudson. But anyways, the summer between my first and second year of divinity school, I was doing what's called clinical pastoral education, where you're basically a hospital chaplain, and it's kind of the throw you into the deep end and see if you can figure out how to swim kind of pedagogy there.
Okay.
But I met up with just people in Buffalo Triathlon Club, and I would do workouts with them a bunch. And I did a couple of races, and that was a lot of fun and successful. And so did that the same the next summer, and then I just kind of it was a natural hobby to pick up, and so I guess sport is not just education; it's also meditation.
Yeah.
For me, and in the 19 years that I've been ordained, the training and the competing has been not just a platform for ministry, but it's been a terrific outlet. It's been a terrific, for lack of a better explanation, it's a form of prayer. Training is a form of prayer, especially when you're outside, but inside works too. And so I did triathlons, an occasional marathon here or there, but for like the first 7 years or so after seminary, I was predominantly a triathlete. Ended up doing a few Ironmans, had some good age group wins in Olympic distance tries. So it was fun. I think I made All-American honorable mention a couple of times, which always kind of amused me because it seems like that's like geared towards people who weren't satisfied with their high school football career.
It does kind of seem that way.
Anyway, I started getting into ultras in 2011 when I had signed up for Ironman Florida, which is in early November. And because the triathlon season in the Northeast doesn't start until, they sometimes start it as early as late May.
Right.
I've done a couple. There's this one half Ironman that I've done in late May a couple of times in Harriman State Park. It's got a lot of climbing on the bike, but late May in the Northeast, the weather can be pretty marginal. And one year that I did it, it was just barely warm enough legally, in USA Triathlon rules to have a race. The water was like 55 degrees, and I think the air temperature was like 51, windy and rainy. And it was hilly. But I did the whole bike leg in, like a jacket and gloves and knee warmers, because it was just so cold.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so because the triathlon season doesn't start till later, I decided, yeah, I'll give this ultra running thing a try. And I'd heard about the Bear Mountain Ultra, which
Okay.
for a while was actually the North Face Endurance Series when that was
Okay.
a thing.
Yep.
And there was this fun but very technical and pretty challenging course. I
Yeah.
ended up diving right in and signing up for the 50 miler, and I just had a blast doing it. It took me, almost 11 hours, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And like that course is got, I think, over 9,000 feet of climbing. Trails in the Northeast are pretty technical. They don't call it the Beast Coast for nothing.
No, they don't. That is awesome, man. So
Yeah, and so that was my first
yeah.
ultra. I did that race a couple more times and did the Vermont 50.
Yep.
And then we ended up moving out to Colorado, to here for 6 years. And that's when I actually attempted my first 100 miler from, back where we lived in New York. And that was it. That was a DNF. I got to mile 75 of the Angeles Crest 100 before pulling the plug. But the next year I went back and crushed that. Got my finish. So, but yeah, I think what the reason why I decided, one is that ultra running, you can prepare for a big burly race, and it's not quite the time commitment as is training for, to do well at Ironman.
Right.
Because you only have to prepare for one discipline rather than 3.
Yeah.
But also, the culture in the sport is very different. It's much more collegial, familial. It's much more community. I mean, the Leadville 100s is less like that, but all of the other 100s I've done, and all the shorter races I've done, they very much had a community feel. When you do something like 100 miler, afterwards you now have like 200 close friends who would give you the shirt off their back if you needed it. So
absolutely. Yeah. So let's fast forward just, not too terribly far, but like you've done now, what, 400 or 500 mile, 600 milers, 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably short.
I'm just giving you a chance to brag on yourself. But no, man, that's right. You've done Angeles Crest now like 4 or 5 times, right?
I attempted 3 times, finished it twice.
Right.
I finished the Bear twice, and then Leadville, Western States, Wasatch, Bighorn, Run Rabbit Run, High Lonesome, Cascade Crest. Each once.
Awesome. So like we're gonna go ahead and fast forward, from like you're into the ultra scene, and then along comes this blind dude into the Roaring Fork Valley. So I actually kind of want to hear your perspective on how we met and started, kind of running together, and how I somehow convinced you to come out of me retirement.
You didn't have to convince me very hard.
It didn't take long. It was more convincing your wife, but
True. So my wife Leanna, she ended up meeting your mother somewhere, or knew. I think she met your mother through Rob and Erica, maybe.
That sounds about.
So she just mentioned that you're always looking for guides and so on. And I think the first time I guided you on a run was just kind of an out and back 3 miles on the Rio Grande path. And there, there was still a little bit of ice. It was might have been like in March sometime or something like that. It was kind of gray and cold.
Yep.
And so I just remember meeting you at the, I just hadn't thought through what would be involved in it.
Yeah.
So it didn't even occur to me, oh, duh, he can't drive, he's blind. And so, your mother showed up, and you got out of the car at Basalt High School, and then you hand me this like nylon strap, and I was like, oh, what do I do? It's like, so I like pull you, so we ended up going for a short, easy run, and I realized very quickly that this was very much not children's play. I had to be focused, sharp, just mentally the whole time. I had to let you know where you were the whole time, what was ahead of you. Yeah. It took some getting used to that. So we might have done a couple other group runs before you had suggested doing Ironman Florida, or not Florida, Arizona.
Yep.
Because I think it was sometime it was after I had introduced you to trail running. We had done it like a group run at Red Hill.
We ran up Red Hill. It was like the midnight run up Red Hill or something like that, right? Or the full moon run or something like that. So.
Yep. Yeah, and realizing, oh yeah, going downhill is a challenge because see. So I think we were going up Basalt Mountain Road one time, and you're like, yeah, I'm looking for a guide for Ironman Arizona, and next or not next. It was six
upcoming November. Yeah, this upcoming November or something like that.
And I remember like my thought process. My very first reaction was like, no, that's crazy. I will have done, hopefully finished Angela's Crest, only a few months before in August, and with the recovery really only leaving me about 2 months to do any kind of bike or swim training. It's just a bonkers idea. But I remember by the not even halfway through the conversation, I already kind of thinking through, okay, now how could I make this work? And then realizing all right, really I just need to convince Leanna and my congregation, because it would involve taking a Sunday off from them. Sure. But that part wasn't hard, and so sure, let's do it. And here's the thing. Coming from a team sport background, rowing is so intense of a team sport. Yeah, because it's not like hockey or basketball or baseball or football, where if one person's not there, the team's maybe not as good if they're one of the better players, but the team can still go out and compete. They can still go out and practice. Yeah, that's not true with rowing. No, everyone has to show up, and in the race, there's really no. It's only 2,000 meters. I say only 2,000 meters. It's it's a 6-minute race in a college 8. And the quirky dynamic of team boat racing, especially in an 8-person shell, is that the harder you pull, the lighter it is for the 7 other teammates. Yep. And the harder they pull, the lighter the resistance is for you. Yep. And there's also a tactical advantage and a psychological advantage to being in front, which is the opposite in a lot of other racing sports. Yeah. So it's not like running a mile in track and field, which is, what it's sometimes been compared to, where, you kind of try to duck in, but you don't want to be in first place.
Right. You want to sit in like that top five, and then
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Let somebody else break the wind for you. And
Yep.
then, right about the time you get to the 3/4 mile in, that's physiologically where everyone hits a wall. And
Yep.
that's where you just try to push through better than everyone else.
Yep.
And the thing is, in college rowing, in a college 8, because of the dynamics I just mentioned,
Hmm.
everyone is just, it's like running. It's like running the 100, but then when you get to the 100-meter mark, you settle down and run 400, the pace you would for a 400-meter for the rest of that mile, until you get to maybe like the last 200, and then you try to run a 200.
Yep.
So it's like, it is not, it's not it's a sprint event, but it is a prolonged sprint.
Yes.
And the way you control your exertion is by how many strokes per minute the crew takes.
Yep.
But the aggression right from the get-go is rewarded
Yeah.
in practice too. So you're really relying on the other 7 people and the other 7 rowers plus the coxswain,
Yep.
and they're relying on you, because if any one of if any one of if any one of you crack, then the whole boat cracks.
Yep.
So coming from a really intense team sport like that,
Hmm.
and realizing that it's that intense team dynamic that creates, not just a very deep social personal bond,
Hmm.
but it brings out, it calls forth your best effort, and quite often an effort that you didn't think you had,
Yep.
and simply you were forced to. You had no choice. You couldn't let your teammates down. They're some of your best friends now,
Yeah.
and so it's just piling on. It's racing in a college 8 is how much pain you can inflict on yourself,
Hmm.
with the only consolation being that you're inflicting it on your opponents as well. And if they're going to beat you, they have to kind of double down, and it
Yep.
gets into this like kind of psychotic poker game.
Oh yeah.
It's a close race. So, um, it, yeah. So a quarter of the way into, in running a mile in track, you hit a wall 3/4 of the way
Yep.
in, and you break through,
Yep.
or you don't. And in rowing, that moment of truth comes much earlier. It comes, 500, a quarter of the way into the race, 500
Yeah.
meters. And it's not that you hit a wall, it's that you go into like a deep dark hole.
Right.
And you really, it's there's this chess match between your body and your mind, where you just try to squeeze every little bit of power out of every stroke that's left, until you cross the finish line. And um, quite often you don't feel the the pain until you cross the finish line, at least if you've won.
Right.
um, and then once you do, there's a lot of adrenaline and exhilaration, but man, the burning sensation in your lungs, like in every muscle fiber. Like
Yep.
there are races when sometimes I remember even feeling it in my teeth. It was
Oh yeah.
like so anyway. um the sudden challenge with doing an individual sport like ultra running or triathlon
Hmm.
is that you miss the camaraderie, you miss that network of mutual support,
Yep.
encouragement, and challenge,
Yep.
um, and accountability. So, um, that like that's hard, and I was much less serious. I'm much less serious about ultra running and triathlon
Yeah.
than I was about rowing.
Yep.
I wouldn't lose sleep over like missing a workout if I didn't feel like it. Um, or like adjusting goals downward
Hmm.
during a race.
Sure.
I've done it all the time. It's one of the things you kind of have to do in ultra running.
Sure.
So that was actually one of the enticing things about guiding.
Hmm.
And this is, I would for this reason encourage any cyclist, triathlete, runner, anyone who has a blind or otherwise disabled athlete anywhere in your community. It's so much fun doing these individual sports, but doing them as a team.
Yep.
So, like I of all the 6 Ironman finishes I've had, Arizona 2017, hands down my favorite. So, that was definitely the most fun.
Oh man, we definitely had some fun at that race. So like,
Yeah,
go ahead.
and your dad coming up to me after the race, "Hey, Father Will, here's a beer." And I'm like lightweight.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think that was both of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk us through that, Ironman Arizona 2017. It
It was
was
fun. We
it
had a
was
little bit of a mishap, oh my gosh, where's our tether?
yeah, oh yeah. Hard to forget that one.
So fortunately
Uh,
they were still there spectating to see the
yep,
swim start. But
yep.
yeah, so yeah, no, I remember I think where we won that race was
Mhm.
about 100 yards into the swim. We
Yep,
were going a little too, I think a little too frenetic. And I
a little
like
bit.
whacked you on the back. I was like, Kyle, lengthen out.
Yep,
And we did. And I think we had a much more relaxed swim, and it ended up being a pretty reasonably fast time. It gave us
yep,
our first lead of the day against
yep.
our arch rival Hiro Matsusu. Last name again?
I can't. I my
Matsuhiro. I can't remember his
I
last
can't
name.
remember her last name, but yeah, everyone called him Hero, and
Yeah,
of course,
that's an easy one to
yeah,
remember.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But of course, we can't leave this out. You are the absolute biggest trash talker in the world. No one would expect this of you, but like I remember we're like,
that was part of the
at
team culture at Brown.
yep, yep, yep. So like I
There was
remember
always
like
this
even
kind of playful joking and you
yeah.
know
So but
ribbing each other.
I remember before the race. This is like the day before the race. Like you I meet you at your hotel, and we stop by the front desk, and you're like, hey, is there a blind guy named Hero staying here as well? And they're like, oh, we're not sure, but I think so. And and you just lean across the desk, and you go, well, if you see him, can you tell him he's going to get his ass kicked tomorrow? So like I like, and no one would expect that of you, but it's just so funny. But and it was you had kind of threw down the gauntlet that day, and you were like, it's game on, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and anyways, so we had a good swim. I
Yep.
think about half a mile to go, or maybe a little less. I caught an elbow from you. Oh, that's one thing. Guiding a blind or disabled triathlete is very enjoyable for a whole host of reasons. But it does turn the swim into more of a contact sport than a triathlon swim otherwise is.
Oh
And
yeah.
it really is like playing an hour of water polo, but with no ball. Uh, Anyways, I caught an elbow from you right in the eye socket and knocked my goggles off, so I couldn't really see. So now we have like a almost blind person guiding a totally blind person. I could see like fortunately the big bright orange
Yep.
buoy where we make a left-hand turn to go back into the ramp was
Yep.
like right there. I could see that, but that was the only thing I could make out.
I'm
So
glad you're
anyways, we
telling me
got
this like 5 years later.
no, and the swim in Tempe Town Lake, the water's kind of gross.
A little bit, a little bit.
but so we had a good swim that set the tone for the rest of the day, and we got just very kind of workmanlike on the bike.
Yep.
Methodical, make sure we stayed very much within ourselves, hydrating, doing all that. And every time every time there was a turnaround, I would notice where, how far past the turnaround we were.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'd remember that number so that when we get to the next turnaround point, we could compare that, like where we passed Hero going the other way.
Yep.
And I could see gradually over the course of the, almost, I don't remember what our time was. It was like around 6 hours or so.
I think it was just under. It was like 5:40 or something like that.
Something like that. So over the course of the next almost 6 hours, I could see the gap going up, which told us we're adding to our advantage over Hero. And I was also, I realized that the third VIPC person in our group was not going to be a factor, at least.
Yep.
They were far enough back of Hero that we didn't need to worry about them. So it really kind of became a tete-a-tete, mano a mano against Hero. And then we kind of just took that mentality to the run. Business-like, we just kind of focused on this stretch of pavement in front of us, getting us to the next aid station. When we get into aid stations, just making sure we kept our tanks full. And just being patient and letting the miles tick off. And I could see that they weren't coming back on us on the run. I think, both, given that I pride myself on a strong closing 20 miles or so in the hundreds that I've done.
Yes.
And I, you coming from a pretty strong running background, I knew we probably had the wherewithal to not just hold them off, but to increase our margin, which we did.
Totally. Yep.
I just remember my lingering memory of the run is kind of right after it got dark. We only had like 6 miles to go, and we actually weren't hitting a wall. Physiologically, we're still doing good. I think we paced ourselves pretty well. We get into an aid station, and it's not an aid station. This is right before that last aid station. No. It
was right around mile like 19 or 20. Yeah, it was right around that aid station.
When I took what I thought was a Gatorade, and it ended up being Red Bull, and suddenly my body was just like, no, get this out of here. And we didn't go more than 150 yards past that aid station, and I was like, ooh, this is coming right back up. But then like a little bit later, I think was it only like 2 miles to go? Matt Miller and the base tent. So it wasn't an official aid station. It's just where all the base people were hanging out. And I think Matt offered you, hey, you guys want a beer or something? And like, it was like, this is when I knew that you were on the same the same brainwave as me. Probably was like, fuck you, we're gonna go under 12 hours. And so we just kept going. We saw it after the finish, I think the next day. But so then we just kind of ran it in, and when we got inside the last mile and a half, we were able to kind of pip the pace up a little bit. Probably wasn't as fast even as like what we were running our first or second mile, but effort-wise, it felt like our closing sprint. I remember like we were we were a good half a mile out from the finish still, and
Yep.
I could hear the finish. I could hear them talking about us
Yep.
from that far away. And in the previous 5 Ironman finishes, don't get me wrong, it's fun finishing an Ironman. It's exhilarating. It's an achievement. But like, yeah, it was some polite applause from the smattering of people that are there at the finish.
Yeah.
It's like, it was fun. There was some cheering, but
Yeah.
not like what we experienced, in Tempe that night, because like from half a mile out, you could hear people cheering.
Yep.
And the like when I could not hear a thing, because like once we got into the 0.2 miles to go, I could hear, is it Mike Riley? Is that the guy's name? The finish line announcer?
Yep.
I could hear him saying, and this looks like it's going to be the 8th fastest or 9th fastest, visually impaired Ironman ever. So like, this is a big deal. And then after something, I'm paraphrasing him, but basically after that, I couldn't hear a thing, because it was just noise. It was like fan noise the whole way in.
Yep.
And then when we actually crossed the line, it just like erupted. I was like, the last time I'd heard that much noise was at like, like a Sabres game or something like that.
Yep.
It was like that kind of just almost deafening. I couldn't hear you. You like practically tackled me. You're like,
I definitely tackled you. Sorry about that. But dude, it was so like we were both so pumped up at that, because I mean, like, it was.
Well, and that was my 4th fastest Ironman. It was a good hour faster than the previous time I did Arizona, 8 years earlier.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, just what a night that was, like, for both of us. I mean, we were both a little chilly afterwards. I think, but and I remember you, kind of, puking up a little bit more in the recovery zone. But but man, oh man, what a man, what a night. And then and then I think you retired from triathlon again after that night. But but you've gone on to just tick off some more hundreds. And
Well, I think one thing we
crazy.
should mention, we did it. We, in addition to like our regular kind of sport specific training, we had a fun team building workout when we did beer stat. Because that was your 3rd 14er and my 14er finisher.
Yeah.
And so it was like fun. And that was, that actually kind of built there's definitely like a Venn diagram overlap of triathletes and people who climb 14ers.
Oh, totally.
And so us summiting beer stat on Labor Day weekend, that definitely like built up the reputation among the Boulder triathlon crowd. Like they heard about that. So yeah, anyway. So,
oh man.
I have to again apologize, because like, here's the thing about people who aren't disabled trying to understand people who are, regardless of their disability. At a cognitive level, we can understand what it's like.
Sure.
But it's like at a visceral level, where we actually internalize understanding. Oh yeah, when we really realize all that, like, one of the gifts that I think you give to your guides is that deeper understanding, that deeper awareness. And of course, I'm now kind of relearning that, though I guess more with like physical disability, suddenly realizing now that I've got to be walking around on crutches for a little while. Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of, like, the places I go to shop, the church, the congregations I've served, I've always
Yep.
prided myself that, oh yeah, we're handicapped accessible and everything. But yeah, no, not, or actually not quite the way I initially believed.
Yep.
And so like, I still have to apologize for walking you off the edge of the awards platform the next day.
I forgot about that.
Okay, well, it's like I've because I had accounted for, I had left enough space for you to go up the stairs with
Yep.
me,
Yep.
but not Sky.
Oh,
And
right,
so
right.
Sky basically, because I didn't account for that, Sky ended up like pulling you kind of off to the side a little bit. So all three of us, because we're all attached,
Yep.
all took a spill. Um,
It's all good.
so,
Classic.
but yeah, there's like when you told me that about some of the obstacles you faced as a blind individual,
Mhm.
um, I I could cognitively agree with them,
Yeah.
but couldn't really appreciate them until guiding.
Yeah.
And it's made me a better pastor, and I hope a better human being. Um, when I've had to deal with people who've either had a physical or sensory
Mhm.
disability,
Yep.
and it's made me, I think, a little bit less of a pity partier the past 4+ weeks now that I'm not
Sure.
mobile. So yeah, but so yeah, I think the other gift is, of course, having, it was an individual sport, but for that one time we
Yep.
got to do it as a team sport,
We
and
did.
that was just a blast.
It was.
So I've already got Run Rabbit Run 2025 on the calendar.
You know it, man. You know it. You know it.
Yeah,
That is
you might not consent to that, but
no, no, it's dude, you know I'm like when I initially, you know, came out to Colorado, yeah, it was I was doing triathlon, but mountain running is, I mean, that's where that's really where my passion is, and I think that's a passion we both share, and like I know, like I like, I mean, dude, we were laying plans to do, whether that be Run Rabbit or Leadville or some crazy 100 miler, for me, like, way back before before my triathlon career kind of took off. But like, yeah, no, this competitive,
we
stage,
got to
this
put a
stage of my this
caveat just to make sure, like in case there's grown up responsibilities like jobs or stuff like that. That
well, I mean, come on.
yeah, it can definitely be done with job. Like I
Yeah,
you
it
know
can't.
full-time job during all my finishes.
Yeah,
But yeah, so
but no, man. So yeah, that that 100 miler is going to happen, and yeah, I think we both have our eye on Run Rabbit 2025. But we got to take care of a little bit of business in Paris before
yeah,
then. But yeah, so so let's go ahead and just shift gears real quick. Well, so what's kind of next for you? And unfortunately, you broke your leg, broke your ankle, all that, and you're doing some uphill uphill skiing, and some touring and all that. But I know you're looking at, you've got a plan to get back to full health. And I know you are a planner, and I know you've got some ideas and stuff that's percolating in the background. So what's kind of on the horizon for you?
well, I'll start by saying what was on the horizon prior to
Yeah.
December. So I was planning on gradually building the run volume, mostly with short road runs through the winter, getting in a lot of elevation on the skis as well, going up Ajax, Tie Hack, you name it. Doing Power of Four with Kyle Young, not blind Kyle, and but obviously that's now not going to happen. I was also planning on doing a few of the kind of short trail ultras. I'm a big fan of the Mad Moose and Gemini events in Fruta and Moab. It's just, those are great spring races. You often get nice sunny weather, not too hot, but and that's usually when you're just starting to get sick of the mud here. So, and then planning on doing a big bookends of the summer 100s. So Bighorn in June and the I'm Tough 100 in September.
That's in Idaho, right?
It is. So obviously I'm not doing Power 4 with Kyle Young. Obviously I'm not doing Red Hot Moab. Most likely not doing either the Behind the Rocks or Desert Rats. The doctor seemed to think I would be back running by the end of April, early May. So, but that's probably not enough time to get a decent amount of run volume, at least enough where I could do the Bighorn 100 and not get injured. So most likely, I'd say 70% likely that Bighorn is not going to happen for me as well. But should be back in action for summer trail running and a September 100. So I'm still planning on doing the I'm Tough.
Nice. Awesome stuff, man. Well, one
of these days the Hard Rock Lottery is gonna work out for me.
One of these days it will, man. One of these
before
days
I get too old for it.
Come on, man. There's 60 and 70-year-olds that are crushing Hard Rock. You'll be just fine. You'll be just fine.
52 is the new 30, they say.
That is what they say. But no, man. I launched this podcast, just to chat with people that have had just an impact in my life, and and hopefully they people like you've had such an impact on my life, Will. I mean, from just all the runs that we have done together. You were the one that introduced me to like serious trail running, not just like hiking and playing in the mountains, but kind of showing through focus and dedication and systems that a totally blind guy can move fairly quickly over single track trail. That just racing Ironman Arizona together, and then just having all the conversations that over adult beverages, and all that that we've had, and I'm so pumped that everyone is getting to hear your story, and I hope that someone out there you impact so many people through your churches and through your ministry, and then just doing stuff like this. I hope that someone hears your story and takes a little kernel of wisdom from it, and gets a little bit of inspiration, and realizes that they're a lot stronger than they think as well. So thanks, just a million times. Thank you for what you've done for me, what you've done for the trail running and endurance community in general. And I'm excited for you to get back up and running, and I can't wait till we start running together again, and running up and down some big mountains, and tackling Run Rabbit in 2025. So I'm stoked, man.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me on, Kyle. And I think I speak on behalf of all your guides. It's fun for us too. It's not like we're guiding someone to like a back of the pack finish or anything like that. This is well, Run Rabbit Run. We might have to settle for a back of the pack finish, but yeah,
we'll be okay with that.
It's
we'll be okay with that for starters.
Yeah. It's a chance. People are happy when they give, and so guiding is a way of giving, and it's always going to be more fun when you're giving than when it's just when you're making yourself the focus of it, and that's before we sign off, that's always the big pitfall with individual sports is that you get so used to thinking, okay, how am I going to do this work? How am I going to do this race? It's just great. It's great to be able to get out of that mode. It's healthy. So yeah,
totally. Well, you guys, seriously, you gotta I'm sure Will's even posting his rehab workouts on Strava. So
not yet. I will
not
be.
yet. No. so hop on Strava, give Will a follow. The Reverend Run Will Fisher on Strava. Go check him out. I think you're on like Instagram or something like that. But
Rev Run Will Fisher, and then on Strava, I'm in quotations Reverend Run Will Fisher.
Yep. So go
quotations.
Yep. So give Will a follow on Strava, Instagram, and that's
and if any of the listeners out there are not familiar with the sport of rowing, go watch my alma mater, Brown. Either men's or women's rowing. There's old races on YouTube. Eastern sprints, IRAs, those are all fun races to watch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's entertaining for sure. Awesome stuff, man. Well, thanks again, Will. You guys, we're gonna go ahead and sign off of another episode of Kicking It with the KTrain. And as you guys can probably tell, Will has definitely helped me keep an eye on my vision, and I think hearing his stories will help all of you keep an eye on your vision. So until next time, so long, y'all.
God bless.